Minnesota to allow quote-unquote undocumented immigrants to apply for a driver's license, which we all know that undocumented immigrants is just a euphemism. Really, these are illegal immigrants. These are people who broke the law to get into our country, but, pretty much in every article I have to show you here, they call them undocumented immigrants because it's part of an agenda to slowly push you towards thinking of them of just basically fellow citizens who they haven't been documented yet. They're fellow Americans, but there's really nothing American about breaking our laws and trying to benefit off of our economic system instead of, coming through with the actual legal ways and respecting our country. So no, they're not undocumented immigrants. But anyways, let's get a bit more into the article here. Minnesotans will be able to obtain driver's licenses regardless of their immigration status under a law signed by Governor Tim Walz on Tuesday. The big picture, the measure, which passed the DFL majority legislation in recent weeks, will allow an estimated 81,000 people living in the state without permanent legal status to apply for a license or state-issued ID. And I'll show you a little bit more here. So the other side, Republicans have expressed concern that the IDs could make it easier for people to sign up to vote or get other government benefits they aren't eligible for due to their immigration status. GOP-backed amendments to include additional margins on the license were rejected by Democrats. Which the Democrats said in support of this. Supporters say that the change would allow people already working in, and in many cases driving in the state, to go about their daily lives with dignity and without fear. So obviously, it's ridiculous that we're giving people who broke our laws to get here, we're giving them IDs in a country that they're not even supposed to be in the first place. We should have zero laws that accommodate and make it easier for illegal immigrants to live here, any laws that incentivize them to live here as if they are part of our community, because they're not. If you came here and you're an illegal immigrant, you're not part of my community. I see you as an invader. I see you as someone who has broken into my home. You've taken one of my rooms, and you've said, well, I'm not leaving. I'm staying here. I have just as much of a right to live in this house as you do. I've been here since last week. You want me to move? I've been here for a whole week already. Well, yeah, actually, I do, because you weren't supposed to come in here in the first place. And then we had some overly sympathetic people and, quite frankly, some malicious people saying that you could stay here. And, maybe you've been here for a while now, but you never had a right to be here in the first place, so you gotta go. You have to go. You can't break our laws, disrespect our country, and expect me to accept you as an American. The first act you did to get into this country was to disrespect us, to break our laws. So no, you're not an undocumented immigrant. You are what we call an illegal immigrant. We are what we call a criminal, because you broke the law. And obviously, these driver's licenses, the reason this is an issue, amongst many, they could use this for a lot of trying to get into many public services, but particularly they can use this to register to vote. They can use this to register to vote and attempt to vote in the state elections, which is odd. Why would someone who's not part of the country, they have no ancestry here, they haven't assimilated to our culture, they broke our laws, they get to vote just like you get to vote. Why is that? Doesn't that seem odd? Why would that make any sense? I have a few more articles here to show you about additional great things that Minnesota is doing. Minnesota Care expanded to include undocumented immigrants, which one thing I want to preface is this is from 2013, but these are just some things that I think have gone unnoticed that I want to talk about. There's a few things. I have two more articles to build upon what they're doing. This one's from 2024. Minnesota Care expanded to include undocumented immigrants starting next year, so that would be this year now. Undocumented immigrants in Minnesota will be able to enroll in the state's low-income health coverage program so long as they satisfy certain other requirements. Residents of Minnesota can enroll in the state-only funded Minnesota Care regardless of citizen status. Starting in January 1st, 2025, was amongst the progressive legislation to come from the blah, blah, blah. All right. So basically, well, they can apply online, they can apply through paper, and to qualify, one must live in Minnesota, have an income at or below the income limit, and they cannot be enrolled in the Medicare Part A or B, and must not be incarcerated. So, another obvious law to slowly creep these illegal immigrants, aka the undocumented immigrants, because they're just as American as you, by the way. That's what they want you to believe, is they are just as American as you are, which obviously they aren't. They broke into our country, they ran into your house, they took one of your rooms, declared it as theirs, and then cried like it was an insane thing that you wanted to kick them out. And then eventually some of the people in your house were like, well, it's so mean to kick them out. They've been here a whole week. You know, it's like, well, that's just not how. Would you do that in your own house? I don't think you would do that. Why should we accept it in our states? Why should we accept it in our cities? Why should we accept it in our country? We have a right to limit who is in our country, and we have a right as a people to decide who's coming in and what system we want them to come in. And when people disrespect that system, we should not respect their quote-unquote right to stay here and their quote-unquote right to get a driver's license and to get health care paid by, guess who? The taxpayers, the actual Americans who are paying for them to get this health care. Why is money that should be going into helping Americans, helping people who built this country, helping people who were born in this country, helping people whose ancestors have built this country, why are we not helping them? Why are we diluting that money that could help them, people who are actually American, and sending it over to quote-unquote undocumented immigrants? Does that seem just to you? I don't think it is. Is it just to ignore your own people and instead care for those who broke into your house and demanded to stay? I don't think so. I really don't. Which we got another article here by our favorite Tim Walz. DOJ sues to stop Minnesota law allowing undocumented students to qualify for in-state tuition. So once again, slowly stepping towards making them normalized, again, undocumented students, normalizing that they are just as American as you, which obviously they aren't. As said here, has been vocal critic of the second Trump administration. No state can be allowed to treat Americans like second-class citizens in their own country by offering financial benefits to illegal aliens, Attorney General Pam Bondi said. In a statement along the complaint, the Department of Justice just won on this exact issue in Texas, and we look forward to taking this fight to Minnesota in order to protect the rights of American citizens first. I have some complaints about Pam Bondi, but here she is spot on. She is spot on. Why are we treating American citizens like why are we treating Americans like second-class citizens? Why? Why do not that I live in Minnesota, but why do Americans have to pay to fund people who shouldn't even be here? We should, if anything, we should be kicking them out and not welcoming them in and incentivizing them to come in, because when we have these policies, we're just incentivizing more and more and more of them to come, because they're like, well, actually, they don't even call me an illegal immigrant. They call me a undocumented immigrant. They give me all these benefits. They let me have a driver's license. They give me medical care. They give me in-state tuition. They give me all of these various things. So, you know, practically I'm being treated as a citizen, so I can just jump the border, disrespect their laws, make it into Minnesota, which you don't even have to do Minnesota. You can do it in many states you can do this in. And you're basically a citizen. You can vote. Why not? Go ahead and vote in the elections, even though you've been there for about 2 minutes. Vote for your representative and slowly dilute the power of the American people, because as these people enter your country, they off-put your political power, your voting power, because as there's more people voting, your vote is worth less and less. So you're voting against people who don't really have a stake in this country. They don't have any blood or stake in this country. They don't have some ancestry. They don't have a connection to this country. It was merely an economic vessel for them. If they really loved this country, if they were really just as American as you, if they were even, maybe some even claim they're more American than you, wouldn't they have respected American law if they're really Americans? What type of message does that send? That you're just as American? I don't think that's the message we want to be sending, that breaking laws makes you just as American. It's a ridiculous notion. They're obviously not the same as U.S. citizens, people who have stake in their communities, people who have ancestry in their communities, people who actually have a deep connection to their communities. It is complete an injustice, and it's an erasure of American culture in an attempt to, yes, replace us with foreigners. And that's not to say that I'm against immigration. I'm okay with immigration to a certain degree when it's legal and it makes sense. I also don't believe that we should just have mass legal immigration either. I am pretty restrictive on immigration in general, but I still see the utility to having immigration. But when they immigrate here, they need to assimilate and they need to follow our laws. That way they do not dilute American culture and they don't dilute our values, because as you import people from other countries, they are now joining into your communities, and their ideas, their beliefs, their values are now taking up a percentage of the makeup of the cultural structure in that city, in that town, in that state. And slowly, as you import more and more and more, you destroy what was once there. The state becomes unrecognizable. The country becomes unrecognizable once you replace the people, because the people are the foundation of what actually make that community. And if you replace the people with people who believe completely different things, then is it really Minnesota anymore? You know, I'll look at London here. Half of London's council house occupied by people born overseas. Foreign-born heads of households in London cost Britain around £3.6 billion a year in discounted rent. I believe that's pounds. I could be wrong. Telegraph analysis suggests nearly half of all social housing in the capital, 48%, is occupied by foreign-born heads of household. Data from the 2021 census shows that it is well over the national average of 19%. These households benefit from cheap rents, which, when compared to private rent in London, average out a discount of around $11,600 per year per household. So this is not to say that 47.6% of people in London are foreign-born. This is to say that those in the these cheap rental houses are foreign-born. Would you think that may have an effect on the culture of London? Do you think that would have an effect on the culture of London? Do you think that might dilute the people, the people who actually built that community, the people who care and have deep roots to that city, to that country, when you have this large of a percentage? And this is just, I mostly show you this to portray what could be in the U.S. if we don't do something about this, which, thank God, we have Donald Trump in office, and he is... He's honestly a moderate in most cases, but on immigration, he's very much staunchly right-wing, and I love to see it, because I'm on immigration. It's probably almost probably my number one issue. Very close to it. Maybe something else could surpass it, but very much my number one issue, and I am very much not happy to see this attempt to replace Americans with foreigners, because that's what's happening. It is what's happening. And again, like I said, that's not to say that there isn't a place for illegal immigration, but inherently, when you bring people who don't follow your culture, who don't follow your beliefs, that don't speak the same language, you have two different factions in your country, and you're diluting your values, you're diluting your cultural makeup. Like I said, if eventually 20% of your state, just throwing a random number, is foreigners who don't speak your language, don't share your culture, you are fundamentally changing the culture of that state. You're fundamentally you're changing, and you are, what's the word I'm looking for? You're making it so that the people who actually live there and have values that correlate with the history of that state, with the history of that country, you're making it so that their voice is going to slowly be diminished over time. And the state will, in essence, not exist. Maybe the borders will, maybe the name will, but in essence, it won't exist. because the people will be a completely different people. And the people is fundamentally the foundation of what makes a state what it is, and what makes a country what it is. It's the people, not simply the borders, not simply the laws, but the people itself. All of these things make up the state, obviously, but fundamentally the building block is the people. And when you replace the people, you have a completely different state and a completely different country. So, anyways, if you guys like this, if you like these updates, please like and subscribe. It means a lot to me. Yeah, I appreciate all the support. Thank you.